Hi, it's me again. I know I made a video just today which has had at least 5 views. So to those 5 people that have seen the video, I sort of in advance take accountability for the fact that I mentioned I'd just seen a Russell Kane story somewhere in the last week that said no one's interested in your fucking journey, mate. No one's interested in following your weight loss journey or your fasting journey or your journey into anything. Stop kind of keeping us updated with content about your sort of progress of your banal, uninteresting life of content that's nowhere near as good as his blistering and well-acted persona, which is honed and polished, I must say. I did listen to an episode of his Evil Genius podcast the other day before I fell asleep. It's quite good. Anyway, this video is about the Avon and Wiltshire Partnership NHS PALS team. I wanted to give a bit of a review of the PALS team. So the other day, I've been in this hospital since August, Weston-super-Mare, Cygnet Cusack, and the other day, I put it on video, see me better and hear me better. The other day, I had an assessment for the Priory, which is a mental hospital in Bristol, and they're considering sending me to a rehabilitation ward there. You're only really going to stay in acute ward, which is what this is, for like a few months. I've been in it way more than 6 months, and so yeah, they came to assess me. I said that I wanted to go to the Priory because my brother lives in Bristol and he's basically my only surviving family member that I speak to. I have got other family, but we haven't spoken in about 10 years. I've got a load of other family that I just don't speak to because we either never met or we just lost touch. Either way, let's have a little surf through the content. So I had an assessment, right? And the assessment people said that I got told they were going to be coming at 12:30 a.m. the other day. And the hours rolled by, so I phoned up the Priory in Bristol on Monday at 1:44 p.m. They were about an hour and 15 minutes late at this point, and I got put through to a medical doctor's secretary who wasn't available, and it just went to voicemail. Anyway, they had turned up at about sort of 2:15, 2:20, and we started having a meeting. And by the time they turned up, the meeting room that we would have been able to use for our meeting was being used for a psychology session. So it was like sort of ran like clockwork. So they turned up. They said they'd been like they'd had a problem with directions on the way or something like that. They're really lovely, and I really hope that they accept my assessment and find me viable as a Priory patient, because I do want to be treated there. And the staff were lovely and they were very engaging, and I've had another assessment via Teams with them, and they've asked me some questions to try to assess my risk and my needs and all that sort of stuff. So they turned up for this meeting, right? And within about 5 minutes of me being in this meeting, I got a call from the AWP PALS team. So first of all, they turned up 2 hours late, and we had to go and sit in the kitchen to do our meeting. And then my phone rang and I said, sorry, I'm going to take this call. It was a private number. That's the number that you can see in that screenshot. So the private number phoned me up. It was a guy called Darren from Avon and Wiltshire Partnerships South Gloucestershire Recovery Team. Now, I'd put in a complaint about the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team. A bit of back information. South Gloucestershire Recovery Team assigned me a social worker, right? And the social worker wouldn't give me their their official work email or their work phone number. And I put a tweet on whatever date this was, 22nd of November 2024. I tweeted, I just received a call from a private number from someone claiming to be a hashtag social worker for at South Gloucestershire City Council. They've refused to provide a direct email address, either nhs.net or any other, or a phone number. Previous Department of Health and Social Care AWP social workers always have. They took a while to get back to me, but they replied to me and they said, hello, thank you for your message. South Gloucestershire City Council adult social care worker would have been expected to have shared their contact details if asked. We've had a look on our client database and we do not have any record of contacting you. We suspect who contacted you was not from our service area. Many thanks. On the same day, I got a letter on South Gloucestershire City Council headed letter paper, right, from the social worker who they said they had no record of and was acting improperly. Basically, the letter just is from the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team, and it says that I can just use an email box which is not monitored. So the purpose of this email service is not to provide two-way correspondence, but to pass on messages when required, should you be able to contact myself or your care coordinator, who is now somebody else. What happened was that this social worker, I checked on the social work database, she was genuine. I wanted to work with her, I had nothing against her. She came into my ward lounge, she came and conducted a meeting and an assessment of me. They were looking at trying to find a supported accommodation placement for me in Bristol. This was before I'd gone down the rehab route or been selected for a rehab pathway. And there was this ridiculous exchange where the manager came up to me a few weeks after that, in January. I made another video about it when I was following my journey into the mental health system, and the manager of this ward came up to me and said, Brodie, I've got something quite concerning to speak to you about. Your social worker's had some really malicious communications from you, and she's very concerned, and they've brought it to our attention, so we're going to have to deal with that. And I said, look, I haven't made any communications to my social worker. And she was like, right, okay. I said, look, you can go through my phone, you can go through everything, be totally open and transparent with you. I haven't done that. Whoever's done that certainly wasn't authored or kind of initiated by me. And I had a meeting with the head of the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team via Teams, with the manager of this ward and the head of the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team, who is my CPN and community mental health team when I'm not in a hospital. When you're out in the community, you have something called a community mental health team. If you're a mental health patient, they're called secondary mental health services. Anyway, I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. So I went into this meeting with this on Teams on a little laptop, and I opened with this gambit of like, I want to make it expressly clear that I've not got anything against my social worker, Catherine Fall, and I haven't made any communications. Whoever has contacted her maliciously in my name is acting fraudulently, and I condemn this. I utterly support a full police investigation. I'm happy to give my details to the police, happy for the police to investigate all the digital forensics they can to try and identify, whatever they can about who made these communications, because it wasn't me. And I'm alarmed and distressed to hear about this, and I'm happy to cooperate and, with any coordinated efforts you want to make to try and find out who this was, And it was as if I hadn't spoken. She just started, this lady who said she was the manager of the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team, started with this triad of kind of like chastising me like I was some sort of like delinquent schoolboy. Like, Brodie, you must accept that your actions here are utterly unacceptable, and you must never, ever contact somebody with these kind of malicious and offensive messages ever again. And, you must be much more sensitive in future, and you must not disrespect people and blah, 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 blah. And I sort of said, look, are you like fucking stupid or deaf? Like, which is it? Like I don't know. I've just said to you, it wasn't me, yeah? And like, it's kind of gone in one ear and out the other. Like, I don't understand how you cannot comprehend that I've just told you that. I sat there with my mobile phone on the counter with the manager of this ward saying, look, go through all my messages. I mean, I couldn't have been more like open with her. I didn't want them to go through my private messages, but I just kind of like, wanted to be, just as transparent as possible. And she said, and I sort of, and after that she said, well, it's not just that, You've put other content online as well in the past about your social worker, and that's unacceptable as well. So I read her that tweet that I just showed you, right? I said, look, all I did was ask why it was she wouldn't give me her email address or phone number. And I thought that was proportionate. Like, she phoned me on a withheld number, and I thought they wouldn't give me my medical legal scrutiny. This hospital still hasn't showed me a scrutiny checklist to show that my papers are without error and that they've been properly scrutinised. That's a different thing. People in mental health professions will know what medical legal scrutiny checklists are. I won't go into that now. I was concerned I might be unlawfully detained, or there might be errors on my paperwork. They still haven't. They said I could see it on a computer screen, but I couldn't have a printed copy of it. Anyway, when I showed her, I said, look, I went to the council, I tweeted them. Yes, I did put my social worker's details on the internet, and the council told me that she should have given you her phone number, her work mobile that we give her, and she should have also given you her work email that we give her to speak to clients, and that shouldn't have been a problem. And over and above that, we've checked our internal database, and there is no Brodie McLeod correspondence listed on the database with any of our social workers, which kind of fitted the bill of her being a bit surreptitious, clandestine, circumspect, suspicious, anonymous, and unaccountable by not wanting to have a paper trail or a thread of emails or text messages or phone call logs between myself and her, corresponding to me being detained at this hospital and her treating me on behalf of NHS and the South Gloucestershire City Council that she works for. Anyway, that's taken me 11 minutes to explain. So they did it once, and they did it again. I've got a new care coordinator, and I asked him if I could have his phone number, his mobile number, his work mobile number, and his work email address, and he said no. And I wasn't happy about that, so I sent this email, right, back in March, on the 27th of March, which says, hello, I've just left my ward round meeting on Hayward Ward, Signet Qstoke, which was attended by Stephen Hopkins, my care coordinator, from the Avon and Wiltshire Partnership NHS Trust. He has refused to provide me with a contact telephone number or an email address as a first point of contact, instead instructing me to use a generic inbox, which I've been advised is not monitored, which I've just read in the letter to say that, and should not be used for two-way communications. I previously had an adult social care worker referred to my caseload by AWP NHS, who, when I asked the same question regarding a direct email and telephone number, refused to then provide them. I contacted South Gloucestershire City Council regarding this issue on Twitter, explaining that I'd received a call from a private number from somebody claiming to be a social worker who wouldn't provide a valid nhs.net email or a work mobile number in order that we could communicate. After a couple of days, they tweeted back to me to say that all adult social care workers would be expected to provide their contact details to clients, and that over and above this, they had checked their internal database and found that there was no record of anybody having contacted me on their system, and they believed that the person was not acting in good faith or potentially wasn't genuine. I conducted a search on the social care register and confirmed that Catherine Ford was indeed qualified as a social worker, but still have doubts about whether she was acting malfeasantly or committing misconduct in a public office due to the opinion of her illegitimate nature being shared to me explicitly in writing in the public domain by South Gloucestershire City Council themselves. With this in mind, I'm concerned that my AWP NHS care coordinator has also refused to provide in the ward round meeting just now his email or telephone number. Based on my preliminary research, I found that a model called the care programme approach, the framework used by secondary mental health services in the UK to support individuals with mental health needs. Under the CPA, patients are assigned a care coordinator who manages their care plan and should act as the first point of contact regarding issues with care. Although it's not explicitly stated as a legal requirement for them to provide their direct email or telephone number, the NHS mental health services have policies about how they communicate with and support patients, and the care coordinator is expected to be a point of contact. I'd like to request a copy of the AWP policy on patient communication under the Freedom of Information Act. I'd also like to formally submit a subject access request for all data to be held on me on any format on systems or databases to be provided to me via email within the allotted time frame stipulated by the Information Commissioner's Office. That was on the 27th of March. I need to get onto the ICO because they've probably breached their even extended time period by now. I went on to say I'd like this to include all care notes, details of any meetings attended by staff, to include full names, dates, blah, 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 blah. I wanted to put an SAR. Based on the findings in the report of the Freedom of Information request and subject access request, I'll then assess whether it's proportionate, fair and reasonable to submit a formal complaint against Stephen Hopkins or indeed Catherine Fall for breaches of policy, regulation or perhaps even law. Look forward to receiving your responses regarding my request for information. That's an SAR and a Freedom of Information request, and hope that this inquiry can be remedied in a satisfactorily expedient way. Please refer to the X post. That's the one I just showed you. So at the end of this meeting, just to backtrack, when I said this to the manager, and said, look, it's pretty condemning actually, like it's quite damning what the council said. It sort of makes you guys look as bent as a 9-bob note. She said, oh, did I say X or Twitter? Is it called X or Twitter? I don't know. Maybe that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I don't use social media. Just started frantically backpedaling. Like, she kind of didn't want to account and address and kind of atone for the information that I'd kind of given her, which kind of makes it look like the social worker was in the wrong. Do you know what I mean? And actually is a bit dodgy as well, because the council haven't found any of my details associated with her on their systems, although she's been to meet me in person, been in my ward rounds on Teams, been in my ward rounds in person last year. Anyway, like, my care coordinator's doing the same thing at the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team. He's saying you can use the generic inbox to contact us, but you can't have my email or my phone number. So I put in a complaint with the PALS team. The PALS team waited until I was in a 2-hour late meeting for an assessment to phone me up at exactly the same time. Now, I don't know whether Signet and the Priory and the NHS Trust that manages my community psychiatric nurse and care coordination team are all kind of in cahoots, and they're working towards a kind of like a structured chronological timetable of fuckbrodyover.com. But certainly kind of feels like it. Like, it was like the coincidence that they decided to wait from the 27th of March to just at the point I was in the middle of a meeting. I think they were hoping that what they did is something called early resolution. So they tried to, with the PALS team, they'll try to conduct a preliminary investigation. Can't even say preliminary because the meds I'm on. A preliminary investigation and like do a fact find. And here's the fucked up bit, right? So this guy, Darren, who said he was the manager of the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team, his fact find was just to ask the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team if they were acting improperly, and he claimed they'd said that they weren't, and he felt that that was satisfactory. So, you know, are you guys bent or doing things that you shouldn't be doing to cover up for an unlawfully detained patient and like sort of like human trafficking? And it's like, well, no, they said they weren't being dodgy. And about halfway through the phone call, like the second of those, he arranged to phone me up. He phoned me up initially during the meeting, and then again, he arranged to phone me back at 4:15 at 4:15, and we spoke for like a few minutes, about half an hour, 45 minutes. I would show you what my call log, but I've got a whole bunch of other phone numbers on there that I don't want to reveal to jeopardise other people's personal data. But I didn't really think that just asking the South Gloucestershire Recovery Team if they'd done anything improperly and then having said no was really a sufficient investigation. He hadn't referred to the care programme approach, and he directed me to their new policy, right, which is the policy which replaces the CPA, the care programme approach I wanted an FOI about. And it's called Your Team, Your Conversation, Your Plan. He had directed me to this document, and very quickly I found that there is a bit on key workers being the first point of contact. So we're focused on delivering compassionate, meaningful, intervention-based care which has been planned between person and their team. These interventions will be evidence-based and therapeutic and can be delivered by a range of organisations. There will be a focus on improving access to community resources. The key worker, all people will have a key worker. who will be allocated once interventions have been agreed. The person will help to decide who their key worker is. Key workers have the important function of facilitating communication, creating continuity of care, and being a key point of contact for people and their families. So if my nearest relative wants to phone up and find out what's going on with my care and treatment, they can speak to the care coordinator, who is not, I don't know if a care coordinator is a key worker, but I'm pretty sure it is. And yeah, they will have a good relationship with the person and the team, take a lead role in making sure that the PWP makes sense and is up to date and is not overlong or complicated. However, all staff providing interventions have a responsibility for having support conversations and updating the personal wellbeing plan. Key worker can work for the organisation that's involved with delivery of integrated mental health support if the staff members have access to the electronic patient record, RIO. That's a bit of a digression, but even though they don't use the CPA, the document that they said they now do use as a policy to guide secondary mental health community mental health teams says that they should still be a first point of contact. And a first point of contact means somebody that you can text and email and phone, and that your family can text and email and phone if they've got any concerns about your care or the legitimacy of what's going on. And like the social worker did it, and the council said it was dodgy. Do you know what I mean? And now my care coordinator is doing it again, and he works for the same team. And the investigation of this early resolution was this guy saying, well, I asked the team and they said it was cool, and I haven't actually assessed the care program approach. He kind of found out halfway through the call that they weren't using the care program approach anymore. They were using this your team, your conversation thing. Anyway, I just said that I was happy for them to escalate it with the PALS team into a formal complaint, and they would conduct a further investigation into whether or not my care coordinator should give me their details so that they can speak to me. Social workers are supposed to, and mine didn't, from the same team. I reckon most people would have an email address for their care coordinator. I have done always in the past. I've been in the hospital, I've been sectioned, unfortunately, about 9 times by Signet since 2018. Things haven't been done by the book. There's been problems every time, and I'm really looking forward to going to the Priory in Bristol, where I can be closer to my brother, and I can hopefully get the fuck out of hospital and back into the community, start trying to make some progress with stuff without having really poor mental health. I, aside from being a bit perturbed by this sort of deviation and the timing, they arrived 2 hours late, and then this guy phoned me up, and I'm hoping that I'd be like, oh, I'm a bit busy, don't worry about it, we'll brush it under the carpet kind of thing. That was sort of the impetus and the sort of feeling I got from that conversation. The timing of it, and the manager of the South Gloucestershire recovery team that I'd spoken to on Teams, like I said, just accused me, even though I tried to say I was innocent, hadn't done anything wrong, and I was happy for them to investigate that, still persisted to lambast me, and then said my social worker's been taken off my caseload, and I haven't had a replacement social worker since. Do you know what I mean? So I don't really know. The investigation wasn't thorough enough. He only found out halfway through the team that they used this your conversation, your thing anyway. I was saying, where's the CPA copy? Why haven't you given me a copy of that? And why haven't you given me a copy of my data either? To show that Catherine, my social worker, was linked to my case and wasn't just moonlighting and sort of acting as if she was my social worker when it was all kind of off the books and a bit dodgy, or something like that. I don't know, it's the way it looked, it's the way it felt to me as a patient with kind of persecutory belief systems and kind of psychiatric symptoms of delusion and paranoia. On paper, that's kind of proportionate that I might have felt that way. And I think anyone probably would, do you know what I mean? It's why would you have a work phone and a work email address and not provide it? I've had lots of emails and texts from social workers. I've had their mobile numbers. I've had their email addresses in the past. I've had a few social workers in my life. They don't keep the details private. They don't want to act with anonymity and a vacuum of accountability. and the investigation by the PALS team had appointed the head of the South Gloucestershire recovery team to investigate his team and find them innocent, and that was all he did. He didn't he didn't know to start with the care plan of the CPA wasn't being adhered to. He got informed halfway through the call of half an hour, 45 minutes, that this new your plan, your conversation, whatever it's called, that bullshit thing, the new policy was in place. And I just scrolled through it, and it sort of says the key worker should be a first point of contact. And if anyone's a first point of contact, that kind of means you liaise with them. Anyway, they've said that the PALS team are going to raise it as a formal complaint. I've got to get onto the Information Commissioner's office and find out what's happened with my subject access request. I submitted on the 27th of March. That's 27th of April, 27th of May. Yeah, I mean, it's getting on for 2 months. It's supposed to be 28 days. They can extend it by like 2-3 months or something, so maybe I'm not within my rights to do that yet. But that's my journey. That's my mental health journey. I've got my social worker was a bit dodgy, and then the manager was really dodgy, and basically just, I think it feels like just trumped up some fabricated allegations because they've been exposed in the public domain by the social media team at the council. And like every time there was another point, I asked why it was every time that this guy won't give me, my care coordinator is on Teams in my ward round meetings. He always uses like a false background. He's either in his car or he's using a false background. And he tried to say that was because in the Teams meetings, there's other people with like laptops and computers which sit like parallel to him. And he literally tried to say that if he didn't use a kind of a fictitious background to make it unprovable where he was, then I might be able to read confidential information about other patients from the screen, which is just a steaming pile of horse shit, isn't it, really? I mean, like, I put it to him that it was, and he said, well, actually, it's also sort of confidentiality of other people there, and I don't know if I buy that either. And I was just generally just thought the PALS team early intervention, their early resolution investigation was rubbish. They didn't have a document or a resource to proportionately have a metric to decide what they were doing and what they weren't doing. And they phoned me while they knew I was going to be busy, by coincidence, which could only kind of corroborate maybe like a revolving door between Signet Healthcare, the Priory, where I'm going to be transferred from under section here and to a section there, hopefully. And yeah, it just wasn't very thorough, was weirdly timed, coincidentally. And when he said that stuff about me being able to read stuff on the screen from like the Teams meeting happens on a massive like 50-inch TV, and then we've got like a table we sit at, and the TV's at the edge of the room, and it's like there can be 4 people on there sometimes. There's just no way you'd be able to read data off a computer. It's just bollocks. So I don't know why my care coordinator is, it's like if I took a picture of him in the ward round, they wouldn't actually have the rights to censor that, because you've got the rights to record your ward round, even go live on video. As in, I've done this in NHS hospitals. I've gone live on a video during a consultation with an NHS practitioner, and you can do that, and you can share it in an unadulterated form on social media if you want to. It's your confidence, your medical information, it's your confidentiality to waive. I've had an ongoing dispute with people here who just don't respect the view of the General Medical Council or the British Medical Journal or the British Journal of Psychiatry or Cambridge University Press, like peer-reviewed PubMed documents saying that, yeah, of course you can record, you can use a mobile phone to take notes rather than a pen if you want. I won't waffle on about it anymore. I think South Gloucestershire Recovery Team are really unprofessional, and I think the AWP PALS team are bent. I think that they're corrupt and unprofessional, and probably colluding with a whole bunch of people who don't have my best interests at heart. and not being honest, accountable, transparent, professional, or open with me. And I think that that's demonstrable from the timing of those 2 private number telephone calls that you can see, coincidentally coinciding with my assessment, and the content of what he said. You know, like the other approach, if he'd read it, says that the key worker should, which I think is care coordinator. I don't know I think it is the same thing. It doesn't say a key worker is a care coordinator, but like now I've got to put in an official complaint with the PALS team because the early resolution failed because he did a piss poor investigation, had nothing to refer to, and all he'd done is, hey there, you guys, are you, have you done something wrong? What's that? No, you say. Okay, job's a good one. I'll just, you know, take your word for it and refer to nothing, and I'll phone Brody, hopefully, at the time he's busy, and, you know, maybe, yeah. He gave me a return telephone number, which I emailed to myself, and I don't know what's going to happen with my transfer, or my life, or yours, but you spent 30 minutes watching me now, so I'll try and keep you updated. But my review of the South Gloucestershire recovery team, I could tell you more about when I was in the community, but I won't do that, is poor. Poor review of the South Gloucestershire recovery team, and poor review of the AWP PALS team early resolution service, who didn't have a resource, didn't provide my data, didn't provide my freedom of information request, and hadn't read the policy they were claiming that supported their right to anonymity and vacuum of accountability. So, wasn't very good. But on that note, I'll hope that everybody else has a better time with the South Gloucestershire recovery team. I'm sure many people get good treatment from them. I'm sure many people have a good time with the PALS team. But when you don't, one of the good things about being British and having a bit of a moan and a complain is that sometimes you can help to sort of shape community services and local authority systems and governance administrative protocols by speaking up and speaking out and blowing the whistle and saying, this is not cricket. And that's what I'm doing now with this video. It's what I've done. Early resolution was crap. I'm going to make a formal complaint, and hopefully they'll give me my data and start doing what it says they should do in the resource that the guy hadn't read before he told me after about 25 minutes, 30 minutes into the call, that they use instead of the approach that I found researching using AI. You couldn't read it, but the principles of the care program approach were like first point of contact. Anyway, it's a great movie called Contact, Jodie Foster, and it's got a great juxtaposition between like faith and religion and science. Watch that film. It's a great film. If you want to waste, I mean, you've already watched this for 32 minutes, so watch Contact because it's a brilliant film. Classic sci-fi, old school. I won't ruin the ending for you, but yeah, it's nice to be able to make contact. Nice to watch Contact as well. It's about 4 times longer than the 33 minutes and 8 seconds you've already spent watching this. So like, take that into account and sort of perspective. Then yeah, watch Contact and watch the rest of my videos and like, comment, and subscribe as well. Cheers. Nice one.